Hey guys, what's up? It's Kat here. Thank you so much for coming back and joining me today. But yes, in the wake of the ending of the finale of the Clone Wars, I figured I would come on here and give a little review as I usually do when a film or a series ends. And especially since I didn't actually film or post any of my live reaction to the episodes throughout the series, I figured I owe you guys a little bit of how I was feeling, and I've been wanting to do a review to summarize my thoughts on the show and what I liked. I think we can all agree that the last 4 episodes, the final arc, was without question some of the best content in all of Star Wars ever. They literally could have just released like those 4 episodes alone and been like, this is it, this is the final season, it's these 4 episodes. I would have loved it and not even cared that all they had given us was just like 4 episodes because it was so spectacular and just like, Yeah, the final arc on its own was just sheer and utter perfection, if you ask me, and I will of course discuss what I loved about it and why I thought it was so amazing, but I did make my video regarding my thoughts on the finale, which I go into a little bit more depth of how emotional I was. So if you're curious about that, I'll link that down below. That being said, I like to try to do these review videos starting with my qualms and my minor complaints and ending with what I thought was awesome and what I loved. But I just want to say that no matter what my complaints may be, these are just very, very, very minor qualms and just nitpicky things. So yes, no matter what my complaints may be, they are just very, very minor in the grand scheme of the entire season. And I am just so grateful that we even got this final season at all. So yes, just keep that in mind. I'm way more grateful and just, I feel like we're so lucky that they gave us this finale to this awesome show, and whatever complaints that I have, they're so minor and just like insignificant, and they don't speak for how just awesome I thought this finale was in general. Number 1, you could probably guess this, I just wish there was more Padme. She was so awesome in this show. You guys know she was a boss, and this show really did her so much more justice than the films did. She gets her action in the Attack of the Clones and she's like a total boss in that film. But in the Clone Wars, they really just show her for like the true, just like independent, like boss queen that she is. She just slays in this show. She's so amazing, and I wish that there was more of her in the final season. I know that there wasn't really kind of a place for her to fit in other than in that kind of brief little moment she has with Anakin. But yeah, for having her be this kind of just, I don't know, all-out boss for the first few seasons and then not seeing her at all in the final season, I don't know, it was just a little bit upsetting. But again, I understand it's not really appropriate and she wouldn't really have fit into any of the current arcs or the storyline that was leading up to the finale other than she's pregnant at that point, so it makes sense. But again, you know, for someone who is an awesome character throughout the show, I just wish there was a little bit more of her in the final season. Speaking of people who were very absent in this season, this is maybe my biggest qualm with the whole season. Obi-Wan, I feel like, got like 5 minutes of screen time total throughout this entire last season. Like, how much screen time did he actually have? I have to do that math. I understand this wasn't his time to shine, I guess. It was much more about, you know, bringing Ahsoka back and highlighting what happens to her and the clones as Order 66 happens, but I don't know. It just kind of felt wrong that it was like the final season of this whole show, and for a character who was pretty much a core piece of this entire series, to have him like very absent in the final season, I just wasn't expecting it. I really thought we were gonna get more Obi-Wan, but I'll let it slide because I'm hoping that we make up for that with the Kenobi series. But yeah, let me know what you think. Like, I feel like Obi-Wan was hardly in it, and he's been a core piece of this entire show. For the final season to just not have him really be a part of it at all, I don't know, it just kind of made me a little upset. Again, minor complaint. He's gonna have his time to shine elsewhere in a live action format. But yeah, I was just a little surprised that there was very little Obi-Wan in the final season of the Clone Wars, a show about pretty much Anakin and Obi-Wan. I, like some people, wasn't a huge fan of the Martez sisters. They're not my favorite, but that is not to say that I hated them or completely despised them. No. Yeah, just because they weren't my favorite characters of all time does not mean that I hated them by any means or thought they were annoying or useless or pointless. No. And in their defense, when you're paired with Ahsoka, who is like the most boss female character, like in anything ever, it's very easy to pale in comparison to her. You know, it's kind of hard to compete with her, but it also just kind of felt like the wrong time to be introducing new characters who are gonna be and take up like a significant bulk of the final season. It's nothing against them, but there are other characters that I just would have rather been seeing, and I didn't expect that we were gonna see so much of those two during the final season of this show, which has primarily been about other more important characters. If that makes sense. I would have rather have seen other people, like other core characters that have been in this show the whole time, rather than throwing into new characters. Just a little sore that we saw more of the Martez sisters than we saw of Obi-Wan and Anakin in the final season of a show that's been primarily about them. I don't despise the Martez sisters at all. If anything, I just would have preferred to see other people, but that does not speak to them being like bad characters. It just means I wanted to see more of the core characters, if that makes sense. Moving on, I think I would have loved to see Anakin and Ahsoka have more time together after the reunion. Like, they were together for like, what, 2 minutes before they had to go off on their separate ways. I was really hoping that they would just have a little bit more time to like hash things out. I don't know, the reunion felt a little bit rushed and wasn't the most satisfactory to me. But I think if anything, this amplifies the tragic aspect of their relationship in the fact that they kind of leave off on an unfinished note and don't get full closure together. And for Star Wars, that's the name of the game. They don't really ever give you what you want to see, and instead they leave you with this black void of sadness. I think that was a tactical move to have them, to leave us wanting more time between Anakin and Ahsoka together, rather than having them together very briefly before things pick up and they have to go their separate ways again. In the grand scheme of the tragedy of what is about to go down with Order 66, it makes sense, and it kind of enhances the sadness of how they end off seeing each other for the last time. And my biggest qualm, I just wish the final arc had been extended. It was just the most amazing thing ever. I wouldn't even say that's like a qualm. I just wanted more. Yeah, I wish those last 4 episodes had been more than just a third of this final season. Like, I wish they had been an entire half. Like, I don't know, I just wanted more of that arc. But again, like I said, the whole season could have been trash leading up to the final 4 episodes, and they would have made up for it. And it wasn't trash. It was great. The final 4 episodes are just, I keep saying it, they're the most amazing thing ever. But yeah, the show was not in any way like trash leading up to it. I'm not trying to say that at all. It was all great and enjoyable and kept leaving me wanting more, and it felt very nostalgic. It didn't feel like the season was an afterthought, or that it was just kind of like tacked on last minute to the rest of the show. Like, it very much blended seamlessly with everything else leading up to the 7th season. It didn't feel random or like it didn't fit in at all. Like, it felt perfectly nostalgic, and like it completely blended like with the previous seasons. It all had that like good old like Clone Wars feel to it, like immediately right off the bat. And I should note that I didn't watch the show or rewatch it leading up to the 7th season. I finished watching it like a couple of years ago and did not rewatch it before this final season, and it still felt very much like we were just like back into the swing of things. Like, it felt perfectly like normal, like jumping back into it from the very first episode. Yeah, I think that's just important to note, that despite the hiatus and the break between season 6 dropping off and this final season. Despite that gap in time, like, they did an amazing job of just like jumping right back into it, and it just feels such like a seamless transition into the 7th season. So I think that's something to note, that it in no way felt like random or like an afterthought or like it didn't belong with the rest of the show. It very much feels like it is a part of this show in its entirety. Moving on, I think I'm just gonna touch a little bit on each arc and what I liked about it, my thoughts about it. Again, since I didn't give a raw, fresh reaction to any of the actual episodes, I figured I'd run through and talk a little bit about how I felt about each arc in particular. So with the Bad Batch, I really loved this arc. I liked that this is one of the few moments where we actually see Anakin kind of in battle again. For me, this arc is the one that felt the most nostalgic, and it had that good old Clone Wars vibe to it. It felt very much like it belonged with the rest of the show. This arc just felt the most reminiscent of the previous seasons. I thought it was a great way to like kick back off and get our feet wet again and just to jump right back into things. It helped to kind of make that transition blend like super seamlessly, jumping back into season 7 after such a hiatus since the last season. I was very curious about how the Bad Batch was going to handle executing Order 66, and I know that a lot of people were theorizing about that and anticipating that we would maybe see more of what was going to happen with them down the line as Order 66 approached. While I'm still very curious about what happened with them, I think it's kind of interesting that there's a little bit of mystery there with them and with Echo and how they went about Order 66, but I think that they are all really exciting characters that could potentially appear in another series down the road somewhere if they do somehow evade Order 66. Yeah, overall, I really loved that arc. Very much just kind of projected that good old Clone Wars vibe, and I think it was the perfect way to kick off this season. And again, it was great to see like this bit of Anakin in action. The second arc with the Martez sisters, again, I'm neutral about this one, so I won't go into too much detail about it. The best part of this arc is when Darth Maul shows up to do his business with the Pikes. That was, I don't really have much more to say about that. I understand that it was kind of a vehicle for reintroducing Ahsoka and to, you know, explain how she makes her way back into the loop of things. I was just wanting her to keep revealing who she was. Like, I wanted her to like use the Force and just like reveal her identity. And of course, the greatest thing ever, the final 4 episodes. It really is like some of the absolute greatest content in all of Star Wars ever. Firstly, of course, have to get this out of the way. The score, the soundtrack, don't even get me started. The most like amazing thing ever. So incredibly perfect and had the perfect amount of allusions to Revenge of the Sith. It's such a testament to how the Star Wars score just sparks these emotions within us. Of course, you know I have to say it. Darth Maul. Darth Maul is bae. You guys know, I don't have to go into much detail. Darth Maul is just my man, the best thing ever, my favorite thing ever. And seeing him in this final arc was just like, this arc was great for so many reasons, but Darth Maul was a big piece of it. And of course, Ray Park's choreography, like, it felt like Darth Maul. Like, he was real, it was him, it was so amazing, and it just, oh my god, it totally helped to step up the game in terms of the choreography and the fighting dynamics. It was just spectacular. I really love that Darth Maul, like, saw everything coming. I loved him before, but I really love him now. Talk about wanting to see another alternate universe, like Darth Maul stepping in to prevent Order 66. Sure, he would have probably had selfish intentions. It adds a whole different dynamic and perspective to the tragedy of Order 66, knowing that other than Darth Sidious, like, someone else saw this coming, and of all people, it was Darth Maul. Like, it's just so crazy thinking that he had the power to potentially stop it. And then it makes it even more tragic knowing that Ahsoka, like, turned them down. They really just sat around and must have been like, okay, how can we make all of this more tragic and upsetting than it already is? And then they were like, let's give them the option to potentially prevent Order 66 and Anakin's downfall and all of this bad stuff from happening, and we're gonna put it in the hands of Darth Maul. And it was the perfect amount of Darth Maul content that I was hoping for, and I was not let down, that is for sure. Of course, the Siege of Mandalore was amazing, and I love Bo-Katan. She is awesome, and I think she would be such a great character to incorporate in other series like The Mandalorian. The Siege of Mandalore was, oh my god, just the fighting and the war. It was so incredible. It was really awesome, and she's an awesome character, and I think they really kind of set her up well for like an appearance in future series or in some other context of some sort. And to wrap up, I think the greatest thing about this season is none other than the girl boss we all deserve, Ahsoka Tano. She is, without question, one of the greatest female leads in not just all of Star Wars, but just in anything. I think it's such a shame that she is not in any of the films, because she is such a phenomenal, incredible character that deserves to be in the film aspect of canon for Star Wars. And I really hope that we do get to see her eventually at some point in a live action setting, whether it is in The Mandalorian or maybe in Kenobi in some way, shape, or form. She just deserves it. She is the epitome of what makes a phenomenal and inspiring and just freaking boss female lead. Really is just like the girl boss that we all deserve, and she did not disappoint this season, like, or throughout this entire show. I'm so grateful that she made her return this season and that we saw a lot of her. I just need to give that shout out to Ahsoka Tano for being an incredible character that not just girls but guys and all Star Wars fans alike can look up to and admire. I'm so glad that she just came back and absolutely just slayed this season. She is by far the best aspect of this final season. Okay guys, I think that's going to be it from me today. I always leave things out of these videos. These are just kind of my, initial thoughts finishing up the season. Overall, I loved it so much. Again, I think one of my favorite parts is that it blended so well and just fits in perfectly with the rest of the show. It does not at all feel like it's random or an afterthought or just tacked on kind of at the end and like it doesn't fit in. It fits in perfectly with the rest of this incredible series, and I am just so grateful that we were even given this final season to begin with, but the final 4 episodes, oh my god. Of course, as always, I really want to know what you guys thought. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on, a particular arc or the whole show, or what you thought of the finale. I'd love to hear it down below, so let's talk about it. Again, as always, these are just my own opinions. I in no way, shape, or form am trying to thrust them upon anyone or make you change your mind about the show or a character or anything in particular. Like, this is just me sharing my genuine thoughts about the show. And again, I really just want to reiterate that the complaints I had are so minor and insignificant compared to how just absolutely mind-blowingly incredible this finale was, and it was everything that I could have asked for and more. Can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Please, of course, let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the season. I hope that you guys are doing well as always. Thank you so much for tuning in today. May the Force be with you guys always, and I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.